Alright, we're almost done with the forms of the Volcano world, and sure enough, we've only got about, let's just say, for about 4 levels to go. Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only, Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I'm Mighty the Armadillo here. Welcome you all back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as always. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Wii, / Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to win through the first half of the Volcano world, and my god, we died quite a few times, especially noticeable during the forms of the, not only the Rocket Barrel level, but also with the forms of the Minecart level as well. But thankfully, that was the final time we were able to actually experience those kinds of levels, because, well, straight to the point about the fact that we can pretty much guarantee we can able to actually do pure platforming at this rate. So today, for this video is about the fact that we might as well able to say this right now, we can able to wrap things up everything in World 8 by going for the forms of the next level in the game, which as you can tell, I haven't exactly paid attention to the level's name, because obviously with that particular introductioning thing I was gonna able to brings us something into. So either way though, and just as all though is about the fact that unfortunately we've lost Diddy Kong with us sadly. But hopefully we might potentially try to get him, but I highly doubt it, mainly because, moving melters, that's what the level's name. Because obviously I simply paused the game, because I usually double check on the forms of the puzzle pieces and all that stuff. And exponentially speaking though, that we haven't got that long until we've basically completely done with everything, for the sake of the forms of getting every single Kong letters. So, yeah, that basically explains it how. So, either way though, let's just go and get our heart back, so just in case we don't, you know, get hit and all that stuff, because if we do get hit, then we have to start all over again. So, thankfully, we've got Diddy Kong with us, so it makes things a bit easier for doing the forms of some very tricky platforming here and there. So, just to ensure about the fact that we'll be very cautious at one hand. So, I can't believe it's been 2 weeks ago since when The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out. Yeah, especially concerning about the fact that we still play the game even to this day. However though, I will admit though right away for this point, Mighty, I'm also taking a break on the game for a little while, just because about the fact that I was being busy playing another Zelda game, which appears to be by the forms of Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color physical copy of the game. Because I'm pretty sure that we've already explained about this already. Or technically speaking, Sonic has already mentioned about this ever since in Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. So either way though, because chances are though, you pretty much already know what to expect. Oh jeez, that was close. So I think we'll probably best to able to activate the checkpoint, so just in case we don't lose our progress again. And I think straight to the point, we can able to actually blow this fan right here. So potentially speaking, will pretty much lead us to the next bonus area. So now I'm pretty sure, speaking of bonus areas, potentially speaking, that we're basically almost done with the full of the bonus areas in the entire game. Because, well, as soon as we get to the last platforming level that features bonus areas, well, I'm sure that we'll explain more details about that if we get to the next level after this. So yeah, basically it's about the fact that, well, Scout's able to be very cautious to do, you know, careful timing with all that barrel blasting and all that stuff. So either way though, that's all I can really say about this. So, although exponentially speaking though, it's about the fact that, well, today's day is of course the 26th of May today, in this case in 2023 today. Unfortunately though, The Little Mermaid live-action movie has released today. And we will say this one last time, we're probably not going to see it, because obviously it just ruins everything. Especially it's bad enough about the fact that certain changes has to be made. And as a result for that kind of stuff though, that's what I can really say about this for the most part. So, yeah, I always thought about that, especially concerning about the fact that we are getting very tired of the forms of Disney live-action remakes that doesn't suit well enough, compared to the forms of how it does it on the forms of the classic nostalgia that we sort of able to enjoy even to this day. Yeah, especially concerning about the fact that, well, we'll honestly, you know, do prefer the originals over a bit more, as you probably already expect. So, anyway, so I think also, in addition to that, I think we've only got about roughly 6 days to go now until we moved on to June. Although, to be expected about the fact that we can pretty much guarantee we'll be hyped about the forms of Sonic Origins Plus, especially concerning about the fact that we still already pre-ordered the physical copy of the game. So, anyway, there goes that. So, I think exponentially speaking as well, although this won't be the final time we were able to come across into that particular gold barrel thingy right there, but that wasn't until whenever we get to the forms of the true final world in the game, because the reason why I say the true final world in the game is that, well, potentially speaking, we'll explain more details about that and during at some point until next Monday. So either way, World 8-7, Red Rising. So I think something tells me we need to get away from the forms of some rising lava and stuff like that. So, and this is potentially, without doubt, one of the toughest levels in the game. At least specifically when it comes to the forms of this particular process of how this level plays out to be. So, anyways, we'll grab these collectibles here, including... Bruh! Why did the Wii Remote just keep on knocking me out? God dang it. And I timed myself way too early, so... Ah, jeez, I did not expect about the fact that that happened again. Especially concerning after the events of Liftoff launch. Basically, that the Wii Remote just instead managed to able to activate the roll attack instead of the forms of a blow. Which I was attempted to do it, but next thing you know is about the fact that it just completely failed it on me. For a second time in a row. Ah, jeez, I hate when that happened again. Anyway, but straight to the point that we're getting very close towards the end of the game, luckily, so... I want to mention about the fact that if we're able to decide to do the 3DS version of the playthrough, then obviously we don't have to necessarily worry about the forms of a lot of motion mashy stuff. Well, to be fair for this point though, Ray, it's just about the fact the matter is though that at least you're able to actually utilize button mashing instead of the forms of, well, you know what I'm saying, with motion controls and such. Yeah, anyway, and this is where we get to the hardest aspect about this level, is that similar to the forms of how it does it in World 6K, specifically with the forms of Perilous Passage, that basically the lava starts rising and you have to keep up, because otherwise, if you dare touch the lava, it's instant death. So, yeah, not much else to say about this for the most part. And to make matters even much more difficult, is that I'm pretty sure they have to get O, N, and G all in one go. So because of this though, and it's even hard enough that obviously we don't have Diddy Kong with us either. So, in fact, what we're gonna do is that after we finish up this particular stage, we're most able to actually hit back to the previous level and exponentially trying to get Diddy Kong on our own time off screen. So just in case it makes the entire process a bit faster and easier. But at the same time though, if depending on what levels we go into, then it'll make the entire process a bit lengthier. So anyway though, so in terms of the forms of how the fact that, like I mentioned this before, about the fact that, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that the Little Mermaid live-action movie has been released today on the big screen, and I would mention about the fact that I'm not exactly sure the reviews are going to turn up. Well, I'm sure that we'll let Sonic will mention more about this, until whenever, you know, he goes back onto the forms of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. So either way, exponentially speaking, he's actually now onto the halfway, well, I wouldn't classify for saying halfway point, but it's just about the fact that he's pretty much almost nearly at the end, in terms of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, relatively speaking. So, but either way, even then, luckily though, you know, we don't have to worry about trying to get those puzzle pieces again, because obviously though we've already collected them, and potentially we can able to keep them in the process. So that'll be exponential, especially concerning about the fact that obviously we don't have to go through all that tedium again, and especially noticeable that I've almost died for that particular homing fireballs, as far as you can definitely see on screen. So, but either way though, yeah, I just wish if Diddy Kong will be on in this level, because otherwise without him, it'll make things a little bit tough for ourselves. Well, especially concerning about the fact that after all, that Diddy Kong has been the most helpful partner in this entire game. Unlike the forms of how it does on the sequel, which appears to be Tropical Freeze, which we'll get into that at some point next year, for its 10th anniversary of the release of Tropical Freeze on the Wii U version. So, relatively speaking now, I think we should probably save that conversation until for later, so... Oh jeez, platforming is inevitable, especially concerning that, well, you know, timing is key here, because obviously if you mess up with those jumps, then again, you have to start all over again. So at the very least we got you know, O and N so far. And I think something tells me there's the next puzzle piece right there. And once again, we off by one last puzzle piece yet again. And I think something tells me I somehow ignore it by complete accident. I think something tells me the game decides able to say like, hey, you missed that part in the beginning. So anyways, be fast on this part because otherwise the lava starts rising and... Hooray, we got some more banana coins at the very least, so that's that. So either way, thankfully we've now actually got every single Kong letters now, so thankfully we don't have to do all that stuff again. Well, aside from the fact that we're still missing one puzzle piece, as you probably already saw. So either way, we'll go ahead and jump cut for this point, and able to find the last puzzle piece on that level, and bring Diddy Kong for ourselves, because, you know, just to make things a bit easier for our experience, so... Okay, so it's actually at the beginning of the level of what I've realized, because, well, if you pay attention to the forms of that particular lava bubbles they're about to come out, yeah, I was expecting for this point, because you have to stand on here, and this is where we come to ourselves the last bonus area in the entire game. And because of that though, all you can do is a very simple, straightforward barrel blasting, vertical blasting, as you can tell. So either way though, it's actually pretty self-explanatory when you get the hang of it. So either way, and with that being said, we are done with every single bonus areas in Donkey Kong Country Returns. So how about that? And of course we got Diddy Kong off screen, so that'll be awesome. Especially now we've actually got those out of the way, here we go on to the final temple level in the entire game, and without doubt the hardest of the bunch. Well, next to the forms of Perilous Passage, that will have to be by the forms of, if I manage able to press the directional pad downwards, here we have 8K 5 Monkey Trial. This looks interesting, especially concerning about the fact that we have to go through 5 separate challenges in that particular trial right here, or potentially speaking with that particular temple level in mind. And this is where we come across into ourselves the final color orb, so I think something tells me the color we might bump into, it might actually potentially be red. So either way though, let's activate the drum right here, so we can able to actually participate for the 5 Monkey Trial. And basically all you have to do in this particular level, as you can see, with each and every single trial in mind, we have to obtain every single banana coins in each trial, because when you do manage to deal with that, not only do you get yourselves a free puzzle piece, but also you can able to continue your progressioning. So as a result though, this is without doubt one of the easiest levels to able to get all of the puzzle pieces from, because thankfully you can able to obtain them all in one go. Especially concerning every time you complete them, then obviously the puzzle piece will show up. So that'd be pretty cool though, but of course we're not exactly done with the puzzle pieces yet though, because there's still more to come, which again we'll probably discuss more details about that if we get to the finale video of this particular playthrough, because, you know, we're getting very close towards the end, which I'm pretty sure that between us, both me and Mighty, alongside with the forms of Tiana as well, from the likes of Metroid Fusion, we're basically almost finishing up with those two games from back to back, and it's been a thrilling ride so far, which I'll explain more details about the forms of my final thoughts of this particular game once we get to the actual credit sequence of this game. So either way, thankfully using Diddy Kong on this stage will be 10 times as useful, especially concerning about the fact that, well, obviously with his jetpack, obviously it makes the entire 4th trial a lot easier, especially concerning about the fact that, well, once you're able to get hit about quite a few times, you don't have to necessarily try to able to start all over again. Although you will start over again if you somehow die, if you accidentally fall off through a bottomless pit, or potentially get hit about a few times. So, and here we go on to the final trial, which basically involves around you dodging a lot of spike balls from the background. So, that's basically all there is to it, basically. So either way, and that basically does it for the 5 Monkey Trial. I will say, that was actually pretty easy when you do have Diddy Kong with you, as I said before. But either way, we've got all of the color orbs, so meaning about the fact that something will happen if you do manage to finish the main story first. So either way, that basically takes care of that, and, well, potentially speaking, I don't have to worry about trying to revisiting those temple levels again, Assuming, of course, about the fact that, again, I'll explain more details about that once we get to the final video of this playthrough. So either way, let's head into the final boss in the game, which appears to be World 8B, Tiki Tong Terror. I wonder what that's gonna be involved around into. Well, I think straight to the point that we might able to actually get into the tower itself. Oh yeah, because obviously we now need to take care of the forms of the main threat. So in some cases though, how on earth are we supposed to get up there? Geez, a lot of hazards that we need to avoid. And exponentially, in order to be able to get up there, is that, well, we do have the DK barrel from the get-go though, much like any other bosses in the game, but we do have a rocket barrel blasting segment right there. Once again, we have to go all the way up to the top, while trying to avoid a lot of hazards, as you can see. And potentially speaking now about the fact that this particular segment is very similar to the forms of how it does it since in World 7. However, unlike in World 7, in the forms of liftoff launch, basically though is about the fact that this entire segment is pretty short, whilst in here though, it's definitely a bit tricky. Especially because again, with one crash in mind, then you have to start all over again in the beginning portion of this particular segment. So, but of course, if you keep on failing on this point, thankfully that the extra lives are super generous, like we've already established that already. So, but either way though, that's what I can really think about it. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What you guys think about the forms of the Little Mermaid live-action movie? Is it still sucks? And especially noticeable, you're not a big fan of it? Or was it okay enough? Well, for me though, or from our perspective, it's not very good. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, I'm sure that Sonic will be able to explain more details about that again whenever they go back onto Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. And then maybe potentially, we were also going to be able to mention something more related to Mario Kart Tour stuff, but of course we'll let Sonic will able to continue mentioning more about it anyway, so... Yeah, because chances are though is about the fact that we're getting very close towards the end of this game, so... And I'll admit though right away though for this point, Mighty, I apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks. Basically, that I'm really looking forward to able to actually doing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze until next year. Because obviously about the fact no matter what though, we've almost finishing up with the rest of the platformer games, when it comes to Donkey Kong series anyway. Because relatively speaking though, everything else will be pretty much expected at this point. So, anyway, so let's just go ahead and try this particular point again and just make sure we dodge those blimps, because sometimes they come out of nowhere from the bottom portion of this segment. So, and of course do not get crushed by these little extender things right there, and also do not get crushed by the forms of that particular, well, I don't know what you call it, because, well, either way, and I think that pretty much does it for this section, because after that, I believe we'll pretty much have to face off against with the final boss in the game by the forms of Tiki Tong. So, let's get on with it. It's been a very long while since we actually watched something related to that particular CGI cutscene since the beginning of the game. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, enough about that particular distraction. So here you go onto the final boss in the game, known as Tiki Tong. And he is without doubt the hardest boss fight in the game, at least next to the forms of that particular chicken robot thing. from the likes of the forms of since in World 7. Because obviously, all you have to do in this boss fight is pretty simple. It's about the fact that you have to able to attack his hands, and afterwards though, that you come across into the second phase that we have to deal with its main weak spot, which as you can tell is actually on the top of its head. But of course on the first part is that you have to take care of his hands first, because otherwise, I'm pretty sure you have to deal with it for about 3 hits or something, or perhaps even maybe 2. I'm not exactly 100% sure, because it's been a very long time since I actually have last experienced this boss fight, since the 3DS version of the game, mind you. And on top of all that stuff though, it's about the fact that, well, at least depending on what Kong you have, I believe if you do have Donkey Kong alone, basically the cutscene differs depending on how the fact that if you Donkey Kong alone, or Diddy Kong alone, or Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong together. And that could be also applied to the ending as well, but I'm sure enough though we'll see the actual true ending when Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong save the day. So as you can tell, we're now onto the final phase of the fight, and this is where things gets a bit tricky, because obviously we need to aim at its head. Because otherwise though, if you're too slow on that part, he will gain back on track. And afterwards though, you need to dodge a lot of his attacks. Specifically, he summons the forms of those fiery tikis from his mouth. And on top of all that stuff though, is about the fact that, well, if you do die in the boss fight, thankfully you do get the checkpoint. Like, you don't have to worry about trying to deal with that rocket barrel segment again. So you can just essentially try to resume to that point on the actual final boss itself. So, but either way, and I'm sure you can able to skip that cutscene every time when you die to this fight. So, but either way though, it's actually not too challenging for my part. Well, despite the fact that it can be felt a bit slightly tricky at times with all that, you know, with the timing and everything. But apart from those side things though, it's actually quite a cool boss fight, I'm not gonna lie. Even though it's a bit of a shame that those tikis have taken over for that spot instead of the forms of those crumblings from the old days. But it doesn't bother me too much though, because obviously it's a revived of the series as far as I'm usually concerned with. Well, mind you, it's been a very long while since we've last played this game, since 2 days ago, since, you know, we've celebrated the 10th anniversary of the 3DS version of the game, as we've already established earlier, since the beginning of portion of the world. So, at least specifically the Volcano world, to be more specific, so... And there we go, that basically does it for Tiki Kong, so let's watch the ending. Hooray! The day is saved thanks to the forms of Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, so everything else is normal, right? Well, yes it is, because, potentially speaking, we've already taken down Tiki Tong, so either way though, everything else is all bright and cheery and everything. And plus, we got all this stolen banana stash returned, so either way though, things get a little bit more relative at that point, so... Anyways, let's give our final thoughts of the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns, specifically the Nintendo Wii version, because we were originally trying to able to explain about the forms of the 3DS version, but I'm sure that we've already explained about this ever since the forms have been the beginning portion of the Volcano world. So, yeah, let's give our final thoughts of Donkey Kong Country Returns as far as the game itself. I would say this is a fantastic looking game, especially it's definitely worth a buy, although it's a shame you can't get this game anymore on the Wii U Virtual Console download version, just because obviously the eShop applications for the Wii U is potentially dead. So potentially speaking, the only method you can able to get this game nowadays is that you can either get this on the Wii or the 3DS version, that you can play the 3DS version on the go, and on top of the last stuff though, with all that smooth 60 frames per second on the Wii version, whilst unlike the 3DS version, it actually has 30 FPS, which I'm not exactly sure about the fact that how the 3DS version runs a bit lower frame rate, but either way though, I'm guessing because of the handheld's limitations or somewhat. But either way, the story is pretty simple. I mean, nothing too complicated or anything else like that. But also, the gameplay itself is superb, especially noticeable about the fact that it's basically the revival gameplay style as you remember from the previous Donkey Kong Country games, even though the only time exception to that is that there's no Dixie Kong or even Kiddy Kong from ever since in the Super Nintendo titles. Now, on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, well, it's a shame there's no swap mechanic or anything else like that, so, oh well, no big deal. But aside from all that stuff, though, the graphics themselves are really, really gorgeous, even though sometimes it feels a bit too plasticky when it comes to for certain character models and all that stuff, but it doesn't bother me too much. Now, on top of that, I adore the soundtrack in this game, especially because they brought back the classic tunes from the Super Nintendo titles, which I always appreciate. The controls-wise, I'm 50-50 on that. Well, on the other hand, it feels so natural, especially if you ever played the game with Wii Remote's sideways format. Although, there are a couple of times though that motion controls might tend to bother me a little bit. But either way though, that it doesn't seem to ruin the gameplay experience all things considered. Although despite the difficulty, it's a bit all over the place. Like the beginning portion it's not too bad, but when it gets to the end though, it gets ramped up a lot. But I do like that particular challenge, I'll admit though right away. So either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can say in terms of Donkey Kong Country Returns. You can probably still recommend getting this game, like getting the game physically nowadays, because, well, just to ensure about the fact that you're able to enjoy your time playing the game. But either way though, I'm sure that most people have already done that, since back in 2010, that is the definition of the greatest Nintendo Wii games that came out in 2010, alongside with Kirby's Epic Yarn, as well as Super Mario Galaxy 2, and Sonic Colors, and heck, even especially with other titles as well. So, but either way, I guess that pretty much does it for this point. So, either way, the credits is finished, and everything else goes all fine and dandy, right? Well, looks like it's not over because the Golden Temple has been revealed. Interesting.